I'm here, buddy.
It's good to have you on, Larry. You know, our show last week has actually garnered a tremendous amount of viewership. I think people were very, very interested to hear your opinions, your input, your statements about former President George H.W. Bush. I personally was fascinated to learn about some more details about the time you spent in Nicaragua, and you raised, what was that guy's name, Hull?
Yes, Ron Hall. Yeah, Hall, the Hall Ranch.
I never knew about that guy, so that was really interesting for people to see. Larry, you know, I've come to notice that that video got 27,000 views in a week. People love to hear your insights, and as I've said on previous shows, you're a guy who's worked with the Clintons, you've been in D.C. for years, you know how to navigate the swamp. I almost picture you, Larry, like our guide on one of those swamp boats with a giant fan on the back of it. You could be giving swamp tours.
Well,
so it's important that people go to nicholslive.com, and they need to be aware that this is the only financial support that you have. People can donate to you with PayPal, and it's important that people support independent journalism. You can use Larry's email address, nicholslive@aol.com, to support him on PayPal. Of course, Larry, as you've brought up many times, Crowdsource the Truth is primarily supported through Patreon.com. People become sponsors on Patreon.com/crowdsource the truth, or by sending sponsorship payments to paypal.me/crowdsource the truth. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is the control of social media and some of the things that seem to be coming down the pike. There's the CEO of Google just got done testifying before Congress. But before we get to that, you wanted to talk a bit today about Adam Schiff and how some of the Democrats just continue to stymie President Trump. Schiff just said yesterday or the other day that Donald Trump is facing the real possibility of jail. What do you say about that, Larry?
Well, I tell you, the Democrats have a plan that I accidentally stumbled into. And their plan is to use Adam Schiff and the Nunes Committee, which he will become the head of, to go after Trump. He has already, to my information, told Nunes to gather up everything they have, the whole investigations they've been doing on everybody. And then when he gets there, he will go through it and pick what he wants to use. Now, in Washington speak, that means you're throwing out anything except Trump. So the key that I can tell you today, the key to Trump's impeachment lies in Schiff, Adam Schiff.
Wow. You know, what's interesting, Larry, while you're talking, I just Googled Adam Schiff Intelligence Committee because in January, of course, Adam Schiff will become the new chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. And curiously, there's an article here on the Lawfare blog. Now, I haven't read this article yet, but the Lawfare blog is run by Benjamin Wittes, who is the self-described best friend of James Comey. And this is a social media outlet, an internet outlet, whatever we want to call it, that was used to promulgate information about, I would say, false information about the death of Peter Smith. And this Lawfare website is linked with the Brookings Institute, which is another one of these, think tank type of things. And Benjamin Wittes seems to be an expert leaker.
Right. Look, Jason, we're at the most critical moment of time in Americans' history. Let it be the Revolutionary War period where we were founded.
Right.
This country, folks, is either going to continue as an independent, constitutional representative government, run by the people, for the people, of the people. Or we are going to be a new variation of some socialist, communist, they will call democracy, and everything we have known will be over. It'll be over. Now, that sounds melodramatic. That sounds, oh God, so scary. Like I'm putting out some kind of fear-mongering. I'm not. Read the signs yourself. Read them. I mean, I would just ask everybody to take the last 5 or 10 years, and I want you to take the number of times you have said, when something came up, you have said, relative to government in Washington or politics, and you have said, well, that can't happen. How many times in the past 5 or 10 years have you said something can't happen, and it did?
Yeah.
And it's happening every day. The rules don't exist anymore. The basic foundational rules are like innocent until proven guilty. That's out the window, correct?
Yeah, well, that's what we learned from Kavanaugh.
Fourth estate, a fair, free press to keep the public informed of the truth about what's going on. You see, that's gone.
Yep.
And then we're sitting here with a president that's actually trying to do what he said he would do. He's not a politician. What do you want me to say about him? I didn't speak highly of him when he was running. I just said my whole point of supporting Trump when he was running for president was I liked what he said, and I knew he was so prideful. Donald Trump was so prideful that if he got elected president, it would kill him to not be able to deliver to the country of the United States of America and the world exactly what he said he would do. That would kill somebody like him. And then the other reason was there was no way I could go with Hillary.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, to me, I think President Trump really does want the United States to be financially prosperous, and he wants his children and his grandchildren to have a safe and successful country for them to live in. But let's focus for a second. I'm very intrigued by this little bit of information that's come up here with the Lawfare blog talking about Adam Schiff. So what are the implications, Larry, of Adam Schiff becoming the chairman of the House Select Committee on Intelligence?
That's where the impeachment process is going to start. His committee, the Intelligence Committee, and the assets they can bring to bear to spend 100% of their time investigating, from jaywalking, parking tickets, to robbing banks on President Trump. It is their job, their task solely. And he is the leading edge. He's the head of the spear to get Trump impeached.
That's a pretty weak spear, but you're right.
It's not as weak as one would think. Remember, we're still dealing, guys, with an infected FBI at the top levels. Remember, it's not cleaned up yet. No.
Right. Well, the Daily Caller was just reporting that the FBI wants to keep the reasons for kicking in the door of Dennis Kane's house secret. Even though Kane is supposed to be protected as a whistleblower, the FBI wants to be able to make a regular practice of kicking in doors and intimidating whistleblowers, taking their stuff, throwing people in jail. It's pretty crazy.
Well, yes, the whistleblower law that was put in to protect people back, I hate to say it, folks, but back around the Clinton administration when all this stuff was going on. That law, they voted it down during Obama's tenure. And now it's just a weak shell of what it once was. And the whole point there is, you know it exactly. It's to keep people from talking. And it's just like you saw with that guy. They will come and beat your door down.
Right.
They will. Now, is
Yeah.
it right? No. Is it legal? No. But once again, the old adage I've told you for day one, since day one, who you going to call? Who are you going to call? Who can that man call to say, wait a minute, this isn't right. This isn't fair. This isn't legal.
Right.
Who's he going to call? Who's he going to call to get that across?
Well, it's a
To
big
get help.
point that you're raising here, Larry, because we've got these whistleblower laws that are intended to protect people who want to take the risk of coming forward and revealing corruption, waste, or theft. But yet, here, every day, we see new examples of intimidation, everything from social media personalities going to this guy's neighborhood to intimidate him, and all the way on up to the Department of Justice wanting to keep their justification for what seems like an egregious violation of that whistleblower protection. They want to keep it secret so that people won't know
Right.
why they did
Right.
that.
Think about Paul Manafort. He has been in solitary confinement.
Hasn't been
Holy
convicted.
smokes. Has not been convicted of yet a crime.
Right.
Now,
pretty bad.
for the things they said he did, which said, Mueller said, well, you know, he was contacting people when he was told not to. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But before you go putting him in solitary confinement, it used to be the American way that you at least bring charges and put him in front of a court.
Right. We've lost that.
Yeah, and don't think he's lost it. The key word is what you just said. We've lost that. And all of these things that we, me and you and all of you listening to me, all these things that we see happening to these other people, and we think it's bad, and oh, we're sorry. We hate to see it. Folks, that could be you.
Exactly.
Very soon, at the rate we're going, very soon, in your local community, let's say you make a prosecutor mad at you.
Right.
Just mad at you. Maybe does a bad deal with you, or land deal, whatever. You're in trouble. Because the die is cast, all of a sudden you're going to be prosecuted. He
Yeah.
has that power.
Well, we've
to
spoken
prosecute
quite
you
a
and
bit.
destroy you.
Absolutely, Larry. We've spoken quite a bit to Brian Vukadinovich on the Counter Lawfare report about how exactly what you're describing has happened to him. So we're just sort of shining a light on this because it seems to be getting worse. And the first stage is for people to be aware of it, of course. And, you know, Adam Schiff, I think, is a guy who a lot of people don't get a very good feeling about. Now, as I recall, Lyndon Johnson at one point was he the head of the Senate Intelligence Committee or the House? What's the difference between the House Select Committee for Intelligence that Adam Schiff is going to be the head of? And what do we know about that stuff? Can you help people understand?
Well, basically what happens in the House and the Senate, you have parallel committees. Now, they may have a slight change in the name, but they are basically parallel committees. So, for example, it's possible the House under Schiff could conduct investigation, let's say, into Trump, pushing towards impeachment. The Senate might not. There's nothing that says the Senate has to, just because the House is. What will happen, the House committee, when Schiff gets through and presents whatever it is he wants to present, he gets it out of committee, it goes to the floor of the House. Now, as you know today, come January, they're going to have a majority.
Right.
So whatever the Schiff committee comes up with, brings to the House floor, well, guess what? It's going to go. But here's where it gets different. In normal legislation, if you are doing a bill to pave roads, The House would do a bill on it. The Senate would do a bill on it. And it would be in their corresponding committees. Each committee, House or Senate, would design their version of how they'd like to see it go. Then each committee would present it to their respective House. Then when that's done, you go into conference. If they're different, both the House and the Senate leaders go into conference, their conference committee, and that's where they try to merge the two together. That's a normal legislative process. And impeachment's different. This is different. The House goes and says, we're going to impeach him. It's totally in the House. The House could say, okay, we're impeaching him, and then they have the power to hold what we would consider, say, a grand jury in the private sector. They have the power to hold an impeachment hearing of the whole House, presenting evidence just like a court, just like a grand jury. When they get through, they all vote, and if they vote for impeachment, then it's transferred to the Senate, except this time the Senate has to adjudicate it. They have to take what the House has done, and they become a trial. Remember, the House is like a grand jury. The Senate becomes a trial.
I see. So the Senate, they're the ones that would actually try the impeachment hearing, would be tried in the Senate.
That's right. The expulsion or whatever the penalty would be tried in the Senate.
And to be clear,
it would be like Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was impeached.
Right.
I am proud to say I participated in one of the few times in American history, and I was there. I participated in getting the president impeached. He was impeached. However, he was not ousted out of president.
Right. So let's clarify that for a moment, because an impeachment is the equivalent of an indictment, basically. He's just accused of whatever it is. He's not necessarily found guilty until the trial. So when everybody is clamoring about they're going to, impeach Trump, I mean, that just basically means they're going to bring a formal charge and they're going to accuse him of doing whatever it is they think he did with Russia.
That's right. Or whatever they think now. I don't think Russia's on the table, from what I'm understanding from the Democrats. They're not even on the table.
They got something else.
Schiff's mission is to find criminal activity by Trump.
I see. And so do you think...
Schiff's mission is what he said the other day.
Get him put in jail. Right. And so now that Adam Schiff is going to be the head of the House Permanent Select Committee, Intelligence Committee, that puts him closer to assets like CIA, NSA, right? I mean, that gives him special access to things that this would seem like a strategic move for Mr. Schiff, no?
Well, absolutely. And you're going to see a turnabout. Under Nunes, when you look at Nunes, Metters, and what's his name, Gowdy, when you look at all those guys in the other committees that have been looking at it, one thing is consistent. When they go to the Justice Department for information, in their case, which the Justice Department they know has, or the CIA, they get stonewalled.
Right.
But when this happens, hang on. When this happens, whatever Schiff's committee asks for will be promptly turned over to him.
Right.
Promptly.
Right.
And they will have the full support and cooperation of the FBI, etc. Unless Trump is the right guy in at justice, and somehow miraculously, and it would be miraculous at this point, is able to clean the FBI at the upper levels to the point to where we could have some honesty.
Right. Well, we've heard just this week, Larry, that President Trump is expected to nominate William Barr to be the new Attorney General. I don't know too much about Barr. I guess he was already Attorney General under one of our least favorite guys, George H.W. Bush. Isn't that right?
As far as I know. I do not know him either. I mean, he's nobody I've worked with that I know.
Yeah.
Now, that
he's an
doesn't mean we
American
hadn't crossed
attorney.
paths.
Sorry. Well, he served as the
Well, the only bar I
77th
worked
U.S.
with-
Attorney General from 1991 to 1993 during the first Bush administration.
Right. Well, you got a problem there.
Yeah.
Can he be confirmed?
Can he be trusted is a bigger question in my mind.
Well, absolutely. Look, you know, Trump's having trouble right now. I believe, this is my opinion, so don't put it down like Larry's got inside information of this. But think about it. Trump's trying to replace Kelly, General Kelly, Chief of Staff.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason, who of the very smart people, very well established people, people with proven histories to be worthy of helping the president at that level, who, can you imagine, would be willing to throw their life away, their family's life away, their name away? Because you already know that whoever takes it, Kavanaugh's going to look easy compared to what they're going to get.
Right.
Easy.
Yeah, it's,
So
I mean, obviously
if you're Trump, how do you get first quality people to take that job?
Well, and Larry, you were the one to clearly articulate that the barrage of crap that was thrown at Judge Kavanaugh was in part intended to take out Kavanaugh, but in part intended to make anyone resistant to the notion of taking any kind of position in Trump's cabinet, because they're obviously going to be subjected. They're either going to be swamp friendly and then approved right away, or if they're Trump friendly, they're going to be so heavily scrutinized, smeared, accused of, you know, doing things when they were 15 or whatever, that it's going to make it, you know, virtually impossible for them to be approved. Let me switch gears with you for a second, Larry, because unfortunately we have to be a little shorter today than normal, because I'm going to be having a show right after this with members of the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry, and they have made a big announcement that there's going to be a grand jury impaneled here in New York to investigate alarming evidence relative to 9/11. So we're going to be wrapping up in just about 20 minutes, but I want to remind everyone to visit nicholslive.com. Larry's got blog posts there. He's got scripts you can check out. He's got information you can use to contact your congressional representatives. You got the phone numbers and everything if you want to take up some of the causes that Larry has been championing. He's even got a script that you can read, etc. But the most important thing to remember is that, you know, Larry needs our financial support, and you can contribute to Larry's finances by going to the donate section. You can send him money by PayPal, nicholslive@aol.com. And everybody enjoys the Tuesday afternoon conversations with Larry, so it's important that we make it possible for him to keep returning. Larry, there was a hearing today in Congress about the basically stranglehold that Google and other social media companies have over basically people's freedom of speech. And, you know, something interesting that I noticed, I don't know if you got a chance to see this, but there was a guy who was sitting right behind the Google CEO who was dressed as the Monopoly man and holding money. I think he was trying to make a point that Google is an obvious monopoly. So setting aside the First Amendment issues, because I guess those could be argued away that Google is a private company that can do whatever it wants, why is Google being allowed to behave in this monopolistic way where they own all this stuff and they control all our information and they can cancel your email if they don't like a video that you've posted? Why has nothing been done?
Simple. As I have told y'all before, we have the best government money can buy. It's just unfortunate we, the people, don't have the money to buy it. Google and the other billionaires that are involved in this monopolistic control of the internet and the computer world. You see, used to, you know, Jason, this is not a new phenomenon. Some company comes up and they do really great, but then they end up taking the whole market, and then it becomes looking impossible for any competition.
Yeah.
What Google and Obama did to us, they have set the stage, or government has set, Congress has set the stage to make it look like to people like me and you in this audience that the only option then, well, okay, either you let Google have it or the government's going to take control, and y'all don't want the government in control of the internet. Now, folks, that's not true. In years past, that would have never even been a subject. In years past, I think it was the Taft-Hartley Act, that when somebody got in this obvious of a position, guess what you did? You busted them up. Like AT&L, Southwestern Bell. That was the greatest thing to opening up the telephone industry when you finally busted them up.
Right.
These guys were raking in billions and nobody else could get in. Nobody. Why is Congress not going after the monopoly?
Yeah.
If they simply use what has been historic in this nation as a way to limit people with personal power over the whole world without going to government control, has been to bust up the monopoly.
Right.
And if they would bust Google and those people up, if they would open it up to entrepreneurs of all levels, all sizes, there would be competition. And just like what happened with the phone company, phone calls stopped being $11 for long distance a minute.
Right.
It changed. And it was because of the competition, not the government, competition.
Yeah, that's a very important point, Larry. I mean, they were talking a lot about whether the government was going to regulate Google or not, or it's not even about creating some kind of new law to regulate Google. It's about just enforcing existing laws. You raise an excellent point, and I think that there are even ways that Google has stymied competition that aren't necessarily obvious to the lawmakers or even necessarily the general public. One case in point is Mike Adams has created Brighteon, which was formerly known as Real Video, and this is a video service similar in concept to YouTube, but it is so difficult for it to gain traction because Google has created such a remarkably robust system in YouTube that's free not only for the viewers but for content creators like myself. Now, I know Mike has spent, I mean, I don't know how much, but I know more than $1 million. And I mean, that's a ton of money for an individual businessman like Mike Adams, but it's nothing compared to Google and what they can spend. I mean, the thousands of hours of programming and I think the CEO of Google said today they get 4 hours of video per minute. So, I mean, just the notion that anybody could keep up with that, the fact that Google offers that for free. I'm producing, between 1 and 3 hours of content per day and uploading it to YouTube for free. Some of the alternatives that we offer, like when people go to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, they're watching videos that come from Vimeo. And I have to pay actually quite a lot per year to Vimeo to be able to upload to their service. But guess what? That makes sense from a business standpoint. Those guys need to have a data center. They need to have computers storing the video. The more video I want to put there, the more computers and hard drives they need. So it makes sense that you would have to pay for that. And Google is basically using the Rockefeller method of giving it away for free until everybody else goes out of business.
That's right. I mean, guys, I'm telling you that when the point of all of this, Jason, is what I tried to tell people long before the election, months before even the primary. We're in the throes of a silent coup. Now, a silent coup is silent, and it moves on us in all ways, always. Not taking over the Capitol, not just singularly getting rid of Trump. It manifests in every walk of life we have, and they move themselves up and move themselves up.
Yeah.
And eventually, we have gotten to the point where we're squeezed out. Jason, you're squeezed out. your content, the day your content becomes overly problematic
Right.
to the system, they will find a way to take you off. And you know it.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly what happened to Alex Jones. I had Owen Schroyer on last night, and we were talking about how, I think Alex was targeted not specifically because of anything that he said, but because he was the most effective at this independent journalism game. He was getting out a message that was honest, and well, at least it was what he found to be true, and it was counter to the mainstream programming. I mean, here he is in Congress speaking his truth and telling people what's going on with him, and obviously MSNBC doesn't want that, and CNN doesn't want that. We've got a bunch of people with their cell phones getting this word out. So, the more effective we become in sharing this information in social media, the more they want to clamp down social media. I noticed, Larry, there has been a building effort to stifle social media in general. You may recall that it was over a year ago, Robert David Steele went on to InfoWars and sort of did this elevator fart version of an interview where he said that NASA had a colony of slave children on Mars, and that statement has been attributed to Alex Jones and used in part as ammunition against Alex. We also recall that Hillary Clinton said that the siege on the CIA compound in Benghazi was started by a YouTube video. Now, the Moriartys have told me, Larry, that YouTube is banned in Libya. You can't even watch YouTube in Libya, but now...
You can't?
You cannot. And then yesterday we had Macron saying that Russian interference with social media was causing this yellow vest riot. So putting aside the fact that today the Google CEO said that Russian companies spent something like $4,000 or $5,000 on ads on Google, which seems like nothing. It seems like they're trying to demonize anyone who is sharing information on social media. As I've told everyone, I've been the subject of multiple lawsuits, including one from Robert David Steele, the same guy who said that crap on Alex Jones' show. So I wonder what's going on.
Well, first off, there is one of the rules called the head of the dragon. In the game of government, big government's called the head of the dragon. Mm-hmm. And what you do, that means literally that you take off the head of the dragon and the body dies. You got it?
Yeah.
The body dies. So what they watch for, very artfully, very skillfully, they watch for somebody becoming that head. And they've learned through the internet, social media, and Google, etc., they've learned now to pick up on it with their technology to see where somebody may be going, where they may grow an audience. And they cut it off early.
Wow.
They cut it off early. And just like with you, when you become a real probable threat as they perceive it,
right,
what they will take you off about will have nothing to do with what they're really taking you off about. And there is nothing to control it or stop them. Nothing. And all you saw in that hearing today, folks, put this in your little book of Nicholisms, all right? What you saw today with that Google guy, many of the congressmen or senators, whoever he went before, they got their 15-second little sound bites, 30 seconds. Watch them. Watch how they talk. They'll make these statements in 15 and 30-second bites, and they'll chastise him and say they're bringing the world down on him. And they'll use those in their next campaign. But at the end of this hearing, there will be nothing done. Nothing. And I can give you case in case. Let's take New Orleans, the big flood down there. Remember the John McCain hearings where he said, we're going to prosecute these people that came in and ripped all these people off. Not one thing ever happened. Well, they got one guy. But nothing ever happened. Nothing. Remember that girl that was taken by Hussein's people and we supposedly rescued her?
Oh,
and
yeah.
She came and told the truth about the story. Well, guess what? They were going to get after the generals that lied. Nothing happened. No general got disciplined.
Jessica something. Private Jessica.
Yeah, Jessica Lynch.
Right.
Jessica Lynch. Remember the football player that was killed? The big deal, he was a hero. His family came out and said He was killed by friendly fire. They had
Pat
one of
Tillman.
those hearings. It was Pat Tillman, and it was huge, huge. It was on every television, every second of the hearing, and they swore to it in. Whoever propagated this lie, the general, they didn't care how high it went. It was going to be, it was going to be brought out and punished. Not one general, not one colonel, not one major lost one bit of trouble because of any punishment. And it happens every time. We do not have a Congress. We've got a group of people there that are absolutely being funded and therefore, Jason, controlled by these powerful billionaire entities, and not to mention foreign countries. They're literally on the tape, folks. We don't have a chance. We can't. Try to get to your congressman. Try to get to your senator with some logic. Look, hey, take the border, Jason. I know we're in a hurry. Take the border. What? 2006, Democrats are all tough, get tough on the border. We got to stop it. The sky's falling. We got to stop it. Got to stop it. Today, they have a big meeting, and Schumer and Pelosi, Trump lock heads like two bull goats. And I can only say this: if Trump gives 1 inch to the Democrats, 1 inch, they'll destroy him. They'll destroy him. And, how hard is it for anybody to realize, Jason, I'm just talking common sense for all of us, regular people. How hard is it for us to realize you just can't keep that border open, just open borders and let anybody come in? If that's the case, we do not have a country. Quit saying we do. We don't.
Yeah. I mean, there's a definite difference between wanting a sensible immigration policy and just allowing, 4,000 people to storm the border and enter the country, who are waving flags of other countries and might be adult men trafficking children or whatever. That was a pretty unusual meeting in the Oval Office with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer just looks like a miserable reptile sitting there. They even zoomed past him to get him out of the shot because he looked so unpleasant. We can see President Trump with the Winston Churchill bust behind him that he returned to the office after Obama had that. Had that famous thing sent out. So it was interesting to see Donald Trump willing to engage in the head-to-head banter right there that he did. Definitely quite a difference from your standard politician. I mean, I think this is what people like about Donald Trump, is that he's not doing things the same old way, kicking the can down the road. He's telling them, look, we've got to have this wall. I mean, the image I selected for our thumbnail today, Larry, shows the border wall under construction. I think this was in Southern California or maybe Arizona, where they've begun to build this wall. I mean, people who say they want open borders, well, I mean, that doesn't really make any sense to me. Why do we have a country if we have open borders? Why do we have a law here that differs from a law in Mexico? Or why do we even have states? This is all part of maintaining the checks and balances, the controls, the law and order. I mean, it makes no sense that, at once the Democrats are screaming, hey, this gaggle of 4,000 people charging towards the border, it's not an invasion, and they also don't want Trump to have a border wall. So what's going on there?
Well, Trump knows, and I think anybody with half a brain, a real person, knows. If he capitulates on this caravan and the other one coming, if he lets them in as some sort of deal in any way, if they get in, there will be 500,000 moving immediately. It's not about that caravan. It's not about that 4,000 or however many. It's not about them folks. It's about, and that's what the Democrats and that's what these people that are profiting down there from these caravans, that's what they know.
Yeah.
They get this through, and it's over. The border
Larry, just in our
wide open.
Just in our last few minutes, talk to us about how historically migrant crises have been used to trigger wars. Wasn't that what they did in Vietnam? First create an immigration crisis?
Yes, I mean, look, history is replete. Anybody that dares to do it, go look at history. There's never been a country, a nation, that has survived with two societies within one. It's never happened. It cannot happen. Here, we've got the Muslims. They're setting up Sharia societies. That's what they want. Here we've got the Central Americans. They're coming here. They want their kind of government. They want their kind of world. And here we are trying to fight for ours. When those three meet, it cannot work. It can't. That's why America was great. America set some ground rules, set some ground rules. And it said, anybody wants to come here, give us your whatever that it says on the Statue of Liberty, whatever. We set up ground rules. Come, but you got to come right. And the key to the difference, folks, if you don't know, our immigration policy is to invite people that want to become Americans here,
right,
that want to assimilate, that want to speak the language. I'm offended every time I get on the phone to some company that first says it in Mexican and then American. I'm offended by that. The language in America is English.
Right.
English. But you see, the people coming across the border now, the people in your town right now, a lot of them came and they didn't swear to that. They're not here to be Americans. They're here to take from us what they see could profit them. And in many cases, take it back. Western Union. Try Western Union on a Friday. Western Union sends millions and millions and millions of dollars where? Back to Mexico. Now, ask somebody that used to be in the drywall business, an American. Ask an American that used to be in the bricklaying business, construction business, landscaping business, steel business. Ask them what it feels like when these people come in and take your job. And it's inevitable because you say, well, they don't have to do. Well, one company of all of the industry, one company takes the bait, and all of a sudden they're selling for way less than the others. The other companies either have to give in and match it or go out of business. So what do? They have to hire people that will work for less. I mean, it's all there for anybody to see, Jason.
Yeah.
And you're right.
Yeah.
Historically, this leads, look, Jason, I don't want to say it, I don't guess I should. But guys, I don't see how we're that far from some kind of blow up. You think that riot in France?
That's what I was getting at, is that this type of thing seems to be designed to spur, civil unrest and rioting. And, Luke from We Are Change bravely went to Paris to cover the riots. The police are gassing people. There was video that even seemed to indicate that snipers might be shooting people in the streets. So, I mean, this type of unrest, it's easy to transition to martial law, roll the military into the streets of Paris or New York or Washington, D.C., wherever this might be happening. But it's that typical problem, reaction, solution. And, when violence erupts, that's when the cops can start shooting people and the military can get involved. And it's a scary situation, Larry. I'm sorry to cut our show short today, but...
Well, I do want to say this.
Yes.
What scares me about this coming eruption, riots like France or wherever, what scares me, it's not going to be people that are listening to me right now in this program. It's not going to be the average American that's sensing and feeling all of this. It's going to be the, I guess you call them Antifas or whatever. They're the ones taking stock. They're the ones taking notice. They're such a small percentage of this country that they have got the full ear of the media. They've got the full ear of the country. Whatever they do is big. I don't care if it's 25 of them. They'll make it look like it's 25,000.
That's right. The media manipulates
Jason,
it.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Larry.
And let me say to everybody in passing, folks, I need your help. If you want to help, please do it. Jason and I are fighting. He's doing it his way through Patreon. He's doing it through this program. I'm going to go after Schiff. When Schiff takes office, you can bet I will be all over him and trying to stop him from impeaching Trump. But I can't do it by myself. So if you're out there listening to me, I don't care if you got $10, $20, $1 million, go to Nichols Live at AOL.com now, please, and help us. And go to Patreon and register and sign up.
Right. And thank you for that,
We gotta
Larry.
have you.
And of course, people are going to use that Nichols Live at AOL.com address to financially sponsor Larry on PayPal. If you go to PayPal, you can send Larry money with that email address, nicholslive at AOL.com. You can also go to nicholslive.com and review Larry's blog posts. He also posts the videos that we do here on Tuesdays. And thank you, Larry, for reminding everybody that Crowdsource the Truth is viewer sponsored, and you can sponsor the show
Absolutely.
by going to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Some people are unhappy with Patreon. I am exploring alternatives right now. And of course, people can go to paypal.me/crowdsourcethetruth. Larry, I'll be back here in just 15 minutes with members of the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry. We've got a groundbreaking grand jury being impaneled right now to view compelling evidence about the insane crimes of September 11th. So I'll speak to you next Tuesday. Thanks for joining me today, Larry, and thanks everybody for watching.